YouTube, today we are going to go over the Trevenant Forest Curse Heart Trick Room team that I built for the channel and the thought process of what went behind the scenes of making this team. Let's get started and roll the episode. So why Trevenant? Now Trevenant's an idea I had back in Series 8 originally with Reshiram as a pair for Forest Curse plus Blue Flare combinations because I really want to show off Forest Curse. I think it's a really cool move, kind of like Soak and Trick or Treat, and it was just a really unique move and a really unique idea at the time. But unfortunately with Reshiram, it wasn't exactly the greatest because it was actually easy for opponents to stall out if they were able to call the right targets, as a single target Blue Flare is pretty easy to play around. So I ended up changing team to try it out with Calyrex-Ice Rider and Torkoal, which have really strong spread moves in Trick Room that hit hard even if I don't get the Forest Curse off. So how was the team formed? I had Trevenant as the base with Reshiram originally, but I did not really like Reshiram because of the fact the single target wasn't that great with the Forest Curse strategies. It allowed opponents to play around it with Protect and potentially Fake Outs. So overall, just they were able to stall out Trick Room pretty easy, and I didn't get much accomplished. So needed some powerful spread moves to abuse Forest Curse, and that's where I brought Calyrex-Ice Rider plus Torkoal and ended up putting in a lot of pressure against teams that were constantly trying to switch and play around it. So having that said, I brought Indity because Indity always is great on hard Trick Room for a ghost switching, which is really nice to help against Shadow Rider Calyrex, which is always nice, and then the follow me pressure as well, the Psychic Surge to help with Fake Outs because Fake Out is deadly if they are trying to stall out the hard Trick Room. You want to prevent that and make sure you can get the most out of your Trick Room as possible. So having Psychic Surge is really nice. Now for the last two, I knew I needed something for ghost types, especially potentially Lunala and Shadow Rider Calyrex. Especially Shadow Rider Calyrex is usually paired with either Indity or Mienshao as the lead. I wanted a way to deal with both potential leads, so I needed a dark type, and I also wanted Wide Guard because opposing Ice Rider is actually a big threat. Kyogre with Rain Dance Torn can be a big threat, so I wanted Wide Guard, and I usually had them at two separate slots. But I decided, you know what, Guzzlord gets both of them, and it has the role that I wanted it to have, which is Wide Guard, bulky dark type. I originally was testing Umbreon, but since Guzzlord was kind of a thing, I thought, you know what, Guzzlord could be a thing. So I added Guzzlord to the team for that Wide Guard support, as well as a way again to help against Shadow Rider Calyrex's and other ghost types. And then the last mon, I wanted another answer to Incin because, as you can see from the team, I don't exactly do well against Incineroar. And I really wanted ways to punish it potentially because Incineroar could just rotate against a lot of my team in general, make it hard for me to stop Trick Room potentially. So I thought, you know, maybe go Galarian Zapdos. It was a Pokemon that could help against the dark types, especially Incineroar, as I mentioned before, and really punish it. Because there are a few Pokemon that can really punish Incineroar, that can switch into it and really make them scared to like lead Incineroar. You know, Pokemon like Milotic or Bisharp just don't really affect the Incineroar, and Mienshao, they could usually play around it. So I thought having the Zapdos would actually be really solid here, especially it covers Incineroar Amoonguss potentially, which is a pretty scary lead with what I currently had. So had that Galarian Zapdos, really want to try it out, especially with the Psychic Seed variant, and that's how I ended up forming the 6. All right, let's go over the items, the EV spreads, and the movesets. We have Iron Ball Trevenant with the Frisk ability, Horn Leech, Forest Curse, Trick Room, and Protect. So I originally wanted to use a Harvest Citrus Berry Trevenant, but unfortunately, if I did have that and I wanted to get the Forest Curse with Torkoal combination under the Trick Room, it'd be near impossible, or I would have to run so many speed EVs on Torkoal. I'd either be having to probably get rid of Bulk or Special Attack, but it'd probably be Bulk in that situation. But it was too many EVs that I felt like it was justifiable. So I wanted a different set, so I ended up going with the Iron Ball set, so I can always underspeed Torkoal without having to invest any EVs into the Torkoal to have it add the Trevenant underspeed the Torkoal in Trick Room always. Frisk is a great ability since I do not need Harvest anymore. Just allows you to scout for items, and it allows you to think about how the turns can play out in the first turn. When you lead Trevenant to set up the Trick Room, you're able to figure out the items on your opponent and guess the sets, which makes it easier to figure out what is the best play at that moment and how you can plan out for future games. Just checking items is incredible. Horn Leech as the recovery move. I just like Horn Leech. I had the option to put a ghost type move if possible, but I felt like Horn Leech for recovery against like potential water types like Urshifu that could take Calyrex and Torkoal attacks, you know, Feeny or Kyogre. I just felt like Horn Leech was the best option, also getting recovery, so maybe Trevenant could heal up a bit and maybe get another Trick Room up later in the games if I had to. Forest Curse, of course, the move that was the star of the team, allowing the combinations for Torkoal and Calyrex. Trick Room is very necessary for this team, and Protect in case, because you do need to get Trick Room up, and having Protect is a great way to basically play passive and get yourself into position to set a Trick Room, or get a free switch into like NDD so you could actually follow me and Trick Room in the late game. So now the EV spread, it's pretty simple. It just allows you to live Zacian, Behemoth Blade all the time, and that was basically what I decided to EV for. I also decided to check if I really wanted to maybe like live potential like Focus Sash, Astral Barrages from Calyrex, but mainly I thought the Zacian was pretty handy, especially since my team can be very weak to Zacian without the Torkoal. So I felt like being able to live Behemoth Blade at least with Trevenant, if I don't always have Follow Me, it was a crucial factor to this team, and it allowed Trevenant to take on some other Pokemon very comfortably, like Water Urshifu for instance, and some other stuff. Next, we have Torkoal with the choice specs. Drought is the ability, Eruption, Flamethrower, Earth Power, and Heat Wave. Not really much to say about specs Torkoal. It's just really strong. It does huge amounts of damage, hard for opponents to switch in under Trick Room. Incineroar's going to take a bunch of damage, and with the Forest Curse, it really does a lot of damage, if not just KO so much. Not even Kyogre would really like to appreciate switching into a Overheat, especially if it is hit by that Forest Curse. Eruption here with Flamethrower, Earth Power, and Heat Wave. I went with triple fire moves. I went with Eruption, Flamethrower, and Heat Wave. Eruption, Heat Wave, really good spread moves. This team really enjoys having that extra power, and I like Flamethrower over Overheat for the accuracy, as well as bypassing Wide Guard, and then Earth Power as the last move, because I felt like I didn't need Solar Beam if I already had Trevenant, and in the sun anyway, I would mainly just be going for fire type moves regardless. Earth Power was just nice if Trevenant was knocked out and I have to hit fire types with an Earth Power like Incineroar. So just having that other option is nice. Simple EV spread with a max HP, modest Torkoal, max special attack as well for special defense, and you have to run modest and 7 speed IVs. This allows Trevenant with the Iron Ball to always underspeed Torkoal by 1 point in Trick Room so it can get the Forest Curse off, and then Torkoal can fire off a sun boosted power fire move into the opponent. So that is the Torkoal set. It was very powerful and it's really hard to switch into. A simple female entity with a Focus Sash with Psychic Surge, Expanding Force, Shadow Ball, Follow Me, and Protect. Having that Psychic Terrain is just always useful. Having Follow Me as well really complements hard Trick Room because it allows the Trick Room user to actually set up Trick Room most of the time, as well as the Psychic Terrain, very important for preventing Fake Outs from stalling out precious Trick Room turns. So having the Focus Sash item, because I did have the item available, and it's just pretty much usually almost always a guarantee to set up Trick Room with Entity unless they have a spread move that can actually threaten the Trevenant or Calyrex. Expanding Force, Shadow Ball, Follow Me, and Protect. Expanding Force, pretty self-explanatory with Psychic Surge, strong move in general. Follow Me for the setting up Trick Room, Protect for repositioning. And then Shadow Ball is the interesting one. I had the Focus Sash. It just is another answer to Calyrex Shadow Rider teams, especially if they have a Mienshao, because it can be hard to set up Trick Room against those Pokemon. So just having that option of having Shadow Ball to hit the Shadow Rider Calyrex is really nice as a backup, because my team can be really weak to Shadow Rider Calyrex. Max HP, max special attack, 4 defense. You need max special attack to actually be able to knock out Shadow Rider Calyrex. Even with the 4 times super effective is actually kind of crazy, but yeah, you do need the max special attack. And then the HP to survive stuff like Searching Strikes from like Bandit or Shifu, for instance. And then especially with the sun up, and then it's pretty straightforward from there. Just able to survive an attack, usually just Follow Me, get up Trick Room, and can also just do a lot of damage in general. It actually hits pretty hard with the Psychic Surge, Expanding Force, as well as the Shadow Ball. So next we have the Ice Rider Calyrex with the Life Orb as one for the ability. Glacial Lance, high horsepower, Trick Room, and Protect. Life Orb Calyrex, really strong, really hard to swap into Glacial Lance, and with that Forest Curse, can just bypass Intimidate and pick up some knockouts or some really clean 2-hit KOs. It is incredible how much this Pokemon does, even to resisted Pokemon. It's quite insane. And as one for an ability, having an attack boost alongside Unnerve is quite crazy as a combination. Glacial Lance, of course, powerful ice move. It is so strong, it's incredible. Who thought this move was a good idea? Let's be real. High horsepower for the coverage, just in case I don't have Trevenant and I need to hit like steel types or Incineroar, for instance. Having another Trick Room on I think is really great, just having multiple options in case Trevenant's really struggling to set up Trick Room potentially as a lead, and then protect. I had a few ideas about this team. Potential close combat, I had Assault Vest tested, and I also tried out Sub. I felt like Sub was pretty much a waste of time, mainly just because I felt like I was rather clicking Forest Curse plus Glacial Lance most of the time. And then afterward, Assault Vest was just, it kind of could miss some knockouts, I felt like, at Drought. So just going with the Life Orb set, and I felt like Trick Room Protect was pretty good. I didn't even need close combat most of the time or the extra coverage, especially with the Forest Curse Glacial Lance, which is basically what I clicked most of the time anyway. So that is the Calyrex. Very standard set, just a max HP, 196 attack, and then a 60 speed def. You don't really need as much attack, but with the Life Orb, just really hard punishes even through Intimidate. And then having the extra speed def is just nice against random stuff like Kyogre's Orchard Pulse, for instance. Now, Guzzlord, this was an interesting Pokemon I actually did not anticipate having on the team originally. We have a Leftovers Guzzlord set with a Beast Boost for the ability Snarl, Wide Guard, Knock Off, and Protect. Now, I chose Guzzlord. I originally had ideas for Umbreon potentially, but I knew I just wanted another answer to the Shadow Rider Calyrex, of course, being the nemesis of this team. It affects both my Trick Room setters. It is an annoying Pokemon, and then there was some other stuff that I was concerned about with. I really wanted Wide Guard against Astral Barrage, opposing Glacial Lance, Water Spout. I felt like all of those moves just always really just threatened my team, so I needed a way to have Wide Guard, I felt like, on the team, and having Guzzlord actually just ended up being on the team because it kind of provided a similar role to the Umbreon, and just gave me the Wide Guard option and the Dark typing as well, and giving me switching to like water moves in general, which I felt was really nice. So Leftovers for the bulk and recovering health every turn, which is really nice. Snarl is a great move, of course, because of the fact that it can bypass Shadow Rider Calyrex plus Indeedee, lower the special attack, and be great against like Torn Ogre matchups, especially if it's Rain Dance on the Tornadus. Wide Guard, of course, for the spread moves, Knock Off just for extra damage output, and then Protect with my Guzzlord. So the EV spread, pretty straightforward. 172 HP gives a number divisible by 16. By the way, 320 HP is actually insane in a level 50 format. It's kind of crazy, but 172 to increase the Leftovers recovery by a little bit. The defense, max defense, this is so I take the close combat from Mienshao a bit better, which I felt like was a pretty big thing that I really wanted to calc for. And then 84 special defense. I felt like I could invest more in physical defense with Snarl, especially since I would click Snarl a lot of the time with Guzzlord or Wide Guard most of the time. So I felt like I had room to just take the special attacks pretty well with Snarls, and then have the physical defense for, like, again, close combat from Mienshao, triple axle from Serena, U-turns potentially from Rillaboom, which I felt like was pretty important. Impish is actually not the nature you should be running on this team. I did not have a relaxed Guzzlord, which is more optimal. So if you can get a relaxed Guzzlord, run a relaxed Guzzlord, since it does weaken the power of Snarl. I don't think it really came into factor in my games. Maybe it does affect potential two-shotting Calyrex Shadow Rider, but I don't think it really did. It might. I haven't really checked, but it might be potential. So if you do run this team, do change the nature of the Guzzlord to a relaxed nature, since the speed doesn't matter on the Guzzlord, and overall it'd be better to have more damage on Snarl overall, since you are clicking it a lot of the time regardless. Final Pokemon, Galarian Zapdos. Now this lot kept changing and I really wasn't sure. I felt like Incineroar was still a pain for this team, just trying to set up and having that Intimidate. And then there were some other Pokemon, especially Dark type Pokemon like Urshifu, that just were really just pretty much auto losses if I couldn't figure something out. So I looked at the team and I was trying to figure out how to bypass those, and then Galarian Zapdos kind of came into mind, and I thought it would be pretty fun, especially with the Indeedee. And you know, I kept thinking about this acrobatics with seeds, which we saw, you know, a bit in the early stages of the Series 10 meta, and also sometimes in No Dynamax Series 7 friendlies or Series 9 friendlies, whatever you want to call it. But overall, I just wanted to try it out, so I ended up going with a Psychic Seed Galarian Zapdos with Defiant, which means you do get the attack raises if they do lead off with Intimidate. Close combat, acrobatics, substitute, protect. Now, I think I don't need close combat. I don't think the extra power really came in handy, and the defense drops are actually kind of hurting at times. I actually think Thunderous Kick is much better actually in close combat, so it might be a change. There is some times where close combat actually did affect the game, where the defense drops did pull something. So I think Thunderous Kick would actually be better. I don't think I'd miss the extra power because I don't think it really changed much. Acrobatics was a cool move. Didn't have to take the recoil of Brave Bird, especially since I'm a bulkier set and has substitute and protect. So I had this Galarian Zapdos and I had an idea of coaching, but overall I felt like, you know, if I'm leading with Infinity most of the time with this Galarian Zapdos, why do I need coaching on it? So thought about some ways that maybe I could set up for the Galarian Zapdos and hard punish some things, and I thought like maybe substitute potentially if they like get scared of the Zapdos and respect it because they either parting shot into the Zapdos switch or led with Intimidate. So I felt like, you know, that could be a cool way to punish some positions, especially if I'm leading Infinity. I have the follow me pressure as well. So that is the idea behind the Galarian Zapdos. It was to help against the dark types, especially Urshifu, that I felt like this team really just didn't enjoy facing. 204 HP. This gives you a HP stat that is actually -1 out of a number divisible by 16, so you take less damage from sand, which actually did come into play ironically in one of the episodes. So it ended up working out. You don't get grassy terrain with recovery with Zapdos, so there's no point of that. There is 196 attack, which, you know, just a maximum number where you get a +2 stat point that I felt like was worth it. And you know, you can't lower the attack of the Zapdos unless you Wisp or Reflect, which is fine, or burn it. And then I just invested the rest. I had some in defense for Zacian potentially. I had basically just a remaining in defense, special defense, and speed. I felt like it wasn't really that important because I had the Psychic Seed to boost the special defense. Numbers really didn't change much, and then I just, you know, had the rest in defense. It also maybe helped with Behemoth Blade from potential Zacian, but yeah, that's overall the Zapdos. It wasn't really brought that much. I think, like, again, I think the first 4 are great. The Guzzlord and Zapdos were a little bit of odd picks, which I was surprised that I even picked myself, but overall it did end up kind of working, and they did fulfill the roles that I did need to do. I think this team can definitely be improved on these 2 slots right here, but overall they did do fantastic, and I was pretty happy about the results of what they were able to accomplish. So yeah. So what are the general leads with this team? Well, most likely you're going to be wanting to set up Trick Room. It's usually one of the team's best ways of being able to set up a win con with the Forest Curse powering through in Trick Room, and hopefully being able to clean them up once Trick Room is over, or setting up another second Trick Room and then they have no shot. So having Trevenant or Calyrex next to Infinity is usually one of your best lead options for the follow me, setting up Trick Room most of the time. And it's pretty solid. It'll get you Trick Room up most of the time. However, there are some cases where that might not be a great option. So sometimes you have to lead with a wide guard user if they have like a really powerful spread move, like again Astral Barrage, where Guzzlord can lead off with one of the Trick Room mons potentially and protect the Trick Room mon from getting knocked out due to powerful spread moves. Otherwise, I'd say Guzzlord Infinity is actually a very solid lead against a lot of Shadow Rider Calyrex teams. I think it is a great lead against those because against a lot of them, you can either go for Shadow Ball knockoff or get a lot of combinations where it'd be able to slow down the opponent and then maybe position yourself, scare out the Shadow Rider Calyrex, or knock it out immediately and then get your Trick Room mon in and then just set up the Trick Room. Otherwise, you're going to probably lead Galarian Zapdos plus Infinity, which is pretty strong against teams that think Incineroar can do really well against the team. And maybe like next to Amoonguss especially, which makes it hard to set up Trick Room potentially. Having a Galarian Zapdos can really punish that, especially with Infinity having that Psychic Surge to activate the terrain, to activate the seed. So acrobatics really going to hurt the opponent in general. And that's how the common leads, I would say. And overall, playing straightforward, you want to get Trick Room up most of the time. You want to figure out a way to set it up, and then you want to put yourself in a position to either sweep with powerful moves with Glacial Lance and Eruption in Trick Room, especially next to that Forest Curse if you can, but sometimes it's not necessary to set up the Forest Curse, and as long as you get Trick Room up, you usually are able to outpower a lot of teams. And that is how I built the hard Trick Room team featuring Forest Curse Trevenant. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like down below, leave a comment down below, share this video with your friends, and check out all my social medias. It is really appreciated. If you want to try out the team, there is a rental code on your screen available for 2 weeks, and pastebin will be available in the description down below. But thank you all for tuning in. Have a great day, people, and until we battle again, I'll catch you all later.